All right, let's break down this fight in the middleweight division that will take place between two men who desperately are fighting for a spot in either the media or the meta top 15 rankings that will be decided on Saturday in Baku, Azerbaijan. Now, let's look at Ikram Aliskerov versus Bruno Ferreira. Now, for Ikram Aliskerov, he's got a 2-inch height advantage, and they're the same age, 4-inch reach, southpaw versus orthodox, very interesting. And when it comes to the striking numbers, more activity on Ikram Aliskerov's part. And oddly enough, the submission advantage goes to Bruno Ferreira, not only being Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but having more submission wins in his UFC career. Now, let's look more in depth at these opponents. Firstly, first, that they were supposed to fight. I wanted to put this early in the video. They were supposed to fight each other last year at the 318 pay-per-view card for Max Holloway and Dustin Poirier's retirement fight. And unfortunately, Ikram Aliskerov withdrew, and Bruno Ferreira remained in the card. I believe he fought. We'll get there. We'll get there. I believe it was Jackson McVeigh. But anyway, so let's get back to the preview for this fight by first looking at the career of Ikram Aliskerov. And yes, that is Khabib Nurmagomedov up in front of it in his corner, standing on the stool. So this man was, I don't remember, like, yeah. So he trains with the KHK team in Dagestan. And yes, that obviously, there's all the great Dagestani fighters that he trains with. And then you look at his UFC record, 4 wins and 1 loss. But before he came to the UFC, and that's his beginning of his career, but he was also an Eagle FC and a Brave CF alum. So we're going to look at his career. Yeah, there's his Brave profile, taking on opponents like this would be his first loss of his career, ladies and gentlemen. The future middleweight champion of the world, Hamzat Chimaev, when he was 24 years old, got the victory over Ikram, both undefeated prospects. And he hit him with this uppercut straight to the dome, knocked him out unconscious. The referees having to perform CPR, neck spines in place. I mean, like, come on. So now we go to his next bout, since he took his loss to Dennis Tuleman. I believe he has some UFC fights in his career. And a good win for Ikram Aliskerov from getting this Kimura victory. Very nice. And then he would turn that more victory into another one against Miro Djokovic. And yeah, he just Kimura'd him, got the win, and now he milks. Since he is with the Dagestani teams and Habib Nurmagomedov is the owner and promoter of Eagle FC when he retired, there he is with Islam Makhachev and Habib Nurmagomedov on his other side. And so he got an opportunity to fight on Eagle FC's card in Eagle FC 46 against Nashan Burrell, defeated him by unanimous decision. Impressed Habib Nurmagomedov. There's unimpressed Ali Abdelaziz in the other side. But that win was able to get him an opportunity to fight on Dana White Contender Series against Mario Souza. He was a plus 440 dog against Ikram Aliskerov, a minus 580 favorite. He proved why he was a minus 580 favorite, getting the victory, getting another Kimura victory. That was 3 of his last 4 victories, back to back to back to back, one minus back, was by Kimura submission. And this was what Laura Senko said in the broadcast, the first and I believe the only Kimura victory in Contender Series history in 9 seasons of 10 weeks each, 90 episodes, 5 fights each. That is 400. Is that 450? Yeah, 450 fights, almost 900 fighters. He is the only one to get a Kimura finish in Contender Series history. And that's what impressed Dana White so much and got the smile on Ikram Aliskerov's face and got him his UFC contract. So now let's look at he's got 5 fights in UFC. Let's look at what they are. Phil Hawes, he would make his UFC debut at UFC 288 in Newark, New Jersey in 2023, and he would get the victory 1-0 in the UFC by hitting him with this right hand to the chin and sent him unconscious, staring at the lights. Then he was supposed to turn that high-profile knockout victory into a ranked opponent in Paulo Costa for the 291 International. No, it was the Dallas, Texas card, July 29th. Unfortunately, both fighters were rebooked. Let's get more context into that, shall we? He was supposed to fight the future number 2, or now number 3, weird, Middleweight contender in the world, Nasruddin Imavov, supposed to fight him in Abu Dhabi of UFC 294, but Nasruddin Imavov pulled out, so he gets fat bloated 185, not 170. The Ultimate Fighter Brazil Season 3 winner, Warley Alves. And this was so easy for Ikram Aliskerov. I mean, he hit him with this flying knee, just kept the barrage of punches, and eventually Warley just crumbled to his ass. Referee stopped the fight. And now we move on to the next bout that was supposed to take place between Ikram Aliskerov and Anthony Fluffy Hernandez at UFC 298 in Los Angeles, or Anaheim, sorry. And yeah, it was supposed to be on the main card, the featured bout of the main card of UFC 298, where Alexander Volkanovski took Ilia Topuria. But no, no, my apologies. Ikram Aliskerov withdrew, and this would have been a high-profile position for him to get a win over somebody who has, you know, double-digit wins in the UFC, top 10 ranking position. But unfortunately, Aliskerov couldn't make it. Now he's going to try and face Andre Muniz. Unfortunately, Muniz pulled out. This fight was supposed to take place on Fight Night 2015 or 14, June 15th, but Muniz was unable to make the bout. So we tried to schedule with Antonio Tricoli, and Tricoli is not the at fault in this time. Instead, Aliskerov is rebooked. Here's what happened, ladies and gentlemen. Robert Whitaker was supposed to fight Hamza Chimaev, the man that has the only defeat on Ikram Aliskerov's record. And unfortunately, Hamza Chimaev could not make this main event of Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, the first time they would go to Saudi Arabia for the UFC. And let's go to the history. This was what Dana White says. Every time he gets close to fighting, he gets really sick. And as Dana described it, he was violently ill to the point he had to pull up of another bout in Hamza Chimaev's career. And since there's history between Ikram and Hamza, like I said, it's making him go unconscious, but that's the only defeat he's tasted. They decided to give Ikram Aliskerov after, so how many fights did he have? Two. He had two fights against Warley Alves and Phil Hawes, and he's getting to fight Robert Whitaker in his third fight main event. A man who was a former UFC middleweight champion. And he proved why he was a former middleweight champion. He hit him with this uppercut, the same one that Hamza Chimaev threw at him, and just folded him down. The referee, Mark Goddard, stopped the fight, and thankfully, Ikram Aliskerov didn't take any more damage. So here we are, trying to get this fight again, and Andre Muniz is going to take on Ikram Aliskerov at this UFC Fight Night. No, he is not. He is not going to fight him February 1st, 2025, last year in the Adesanya Imavov Fight Night main event. But Muniz had passport issues, not injury, passport issues. So we're going to do this fight April 26th in Kansas City, where no excuses this time. Ikram Aliskerov gets the win. There's Sergey Spivak in his corner back there. Very nice. And just hit him with this left hook to the jaw, and just couldn't maintain composure, couldn't handle the barrage of punches that would follow, and then just took the ground and pound with 7 seconds left in the first round. Andre Muniz would then get defeated by Ikram Aliskerov. Now, as we know, I referred to this earlier, they were supposed to fight last year in July, 11 months ago, but Ikram Aliskerov had to withdraw. So he has another opponent that was in July. This fight happened in October. 3 months later, Ikram Aliskerov gets to face Jung Young Park, one of his, high-profile opponents who's got over 10 fights in the UFC at this point. And good win for Ikram Aliskerov by decision, unanimous decision, and there's sportsmanship shown by Jung. And now that leads us to the rebooking of this bout that was supposed to take place last year in Baku, Azerbaijan, against Bruno Ferreira. Now let's look at the Incredible Hulk getting into this fight that he desperately needs to get back on the winning track. So he trains with Brazilian TKO, and he has 9 UFC fights underneath his belt with 3 defeats and 6 wins. Those are his UFC career, and he did a little bit of a stint in Big Shot MMA. This is Big Shot MMA 2, and this is Big Shot MMA 3, and he became the Big Shot MMA champion. And yeah, he defeated Andresano de Jesus by first round knockout punch with a minute 53. That's all it took. And now that got him an opportunity to get into the UFC by performing in front of Dana White on Contender Series with an 8-0 record at age 29. This man, and this will be a theme you will notice with his corner raising their hands with him, got the victory on the Contender Series by mashing him ground and pound, and that the referee, Mark Smith, had to break it up before it got any worse. So Dana White was so impressed. He's smiling. Bruno Ferreira, welcome to the UFC. And his story of how he got in is crazy because Gregory Rodriguez, RoboCop, was supposed to fight one of the most veteran UFC fighters still on the roster to date, Brad Tavares, at the UFC 283 pay-per-view card in Brazil in Gregory Rodriguez's home country. But Tavares had to withdraw. So what did they do after a recent stint in the Contender Series victory? They give this fight to 9-0 Bruno Ferreira for his UFC debut on the main card of UFC 283 pay-per-view, where he is a plus 260 underdog, ladies and gentlemen. He is at a 5-inch height disadvantage, 3-inch reach disadvantage. None of that matters. Bruno Ferreira got the upset victory by hitting Gregory Rodriguez with this left hook straight to his, it like collides with his jaw, chin, every part of his lower right side of his face, and that sent him staring, not even at the lights, beyond them into the ceiling of the sky. And thankfully, that got him his first UFC victory for Bruno Ferreira. So now let's look at his last 5 bouts, shall we? Abus Magomedov would take him on, and this would be, unfortunately for Bruno, not a good outing because he would lose this fight by unanimous decision. Or no, he didn't lose it, but it would be a third round arm triangle choke. It almost went to the cards, but had it would have been the same result. Your winner, Abus Magomedov. So then after that loss, he would take on Armen Petrosyan, a 9-4 record. And oddly enough, he's the favorite. I don't understand that. This would have been the easiest fight to pick in Bruno Ferreira's side, and that's exactly what happened when he got Armen Petrosyan locked in this triangle armbar where he is pulling his right arm into the shadow realm. And that's the victory, ladies and gentlemen. And now we go into, yes, the bout that we've already talked about. This was supposed to be next under him. So instead of Ikram Aliskerov, since he withdrew, called it. He fought 6-0 Jackson McVeigh, such short notice, making his UFC debut. And he's a plus 380 dog, minus 500 favorite for the rightful veteran in the promotion. And he proved why that's the case by getting him in a chest or a back up arm bar that was just beautifully done. Bruno Ferreira is just getting submission after submission victories. And now he has Marvin, the Italian Dream Vittori, biggest high profile bout in his belt that he's faced, other than Gregory Rodriguez, if you think, but he's never challenged for a belt like Marvin Vittori has. And they're not in that time frame anytime soon because he's just on the decline and capitalizing on a former title challenger that's on the downslide in his career. Bruno Ferreira gets this victory by unanimous decision. And then we were supposed to get at the UFC 326 card earlier this year in March, Paulo Costa versus Bruno Ferreira. It's weird. It's like Paulo Costa was supposed to fight Ikram Aliskerov and Bruno Ferreira, and he said, screw both of you. Hilarious. So, yep, Costa withdraws. So then we get a rematch scheduled bout between the man that gave Bruno his first UFC victory, Gregory RoboCop Rodriguez. And again, this was from 283, and we saw how it withdrew. And again, it's weird how we got this bout because Paulo Costa pulled out. And unfortunately for Bruno Ferreira, it didn't go the way the first time went. Gregory Rodriguez avenged his loss. He's number 13. Since that loss, he came back into the rankings and made a name for himself, just like Bruno Ferreira did, and he's 15 versus 13. He got hit with this right punch straight to the lip. Like he got him right in the kisser. And that just sent him will reap what you sow. Not the exact way that Gregory was when they fought first time, but just like the first fight, someone is looking up at the lights and no one is home. So that leads us to the fight that will take place tomorrow between Ikram Aliskerov and Bruno Ferreira. This is the schedule bout that was supposed to play last year. I think because Ikram Aliskerov rebounded and got a win back in his opponent's side, he's coming off of a loss. And again, he beat Andre Muniz, he beat Jung Young Park, back-to-back wins. And then you look at Bruno's coming off of that knockout loss to Gregory Rodriguez. And if you look at Ikram's losses, they're to Hamzat Chimaev and Robert Whitaker, both former middleweight champions. And you look at Bruno's losses to Abus Magomedov, Nursultan Ruzaboyev, and the man that he already defeated, Gregory Rodriguez, the first time, mind you, but still. I see Ikram Aliskerov. He is very similar to fighters like Abus Magomedov and Nursultan Ruzaboyev. So with that being said, I'm going with Ikram Aliskerov. I don't think he's going to get a finish victory. He's gone back, he's gone a couple of decisions lately. So I'm going with 3-round decision. Ikram Aliskerov, your winner. That's it.